The European Union has ambitious plans to slash emissions by at least 55% by 2030. A dozen climate policy proposals are set to be included in the bloc's Fit for 55 package. The sweeping changes aim to transform the region's economy to fight climate change. It will require companies and households to adopt cleaner technologies to accelerate a shift away from fossil fuels. EU member states will now focus on turning these measures into law, but there are already signs of discontent. And for more on this, Lucy Hoff joins us from Brussels. Lucy, it's a massive package. Which industries will be targeted?
It certainly is a really substantial piece of legislation, Steve. Almost every industry will be asked to speed up the phasing out of fossil fuels in order to meet the EU's new and more ambitious climate targets of net zero by 2050. So that's any industry from energy, transport or trade. So sweeping changes for businesses and households here in Europe. On the table are tougher CO2 standards for cars and vehicles and the banning of all new combustion engine vehicles by 2035. There'll be new targets for renewable energy. There'll be very significantly a proposal for reforms to the carbon market, the world's largest carbon market. So this is tightening the cap on CO2 emissions for industries like airlines and the shipping industry, so hiking the price on pollution. There are also plans for a new carbon border tax, which would slap tariffs on imports such as steel and cement produced in countries with high emissions in the manufacturing process.
And can we expect the bloc to reach an agreement on the policies anytime soon?
Well, certainly it's likely to be a long and difficult process. The proposals have been tabled by the European Commission today, but it does seem likely that once they are implemented, which could be in months or even years, they will be in a very different form to what we're looking at today. There will be months of negotiations between European capitals. We know that with the more significant proposals, such as reform to the carbon market, there will likely be some resistance from countries, for example, in Central and Eastern Europe, who are concerned about the transition of their economies away from coal and the potential for higher costs for poorer households. There'll also be concern, for example, in France about the transition to renewable energy. We know that some rural communities are very concerned about things like wind turbines in those areas. The European Commission, to assuage those concerns about higher costs, is putting forward a fund, a social cost fund that would help to mitigate some of those costs for poorer households. It's predicted that there are 34 million households living in some degree of energy poverty, so that would mitigate some of those concerns, but likely long and difficult months of negotiations ahead.
Okay, thanks for getting us across it. Lucy Hoff speaking to us from Brussels.